Yo, what's going on, y'all? How's everybody doing? We are back with another podcast episode. This is Equip the Podcast, and you know the saying, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Hope everyone's having a good evening, noon, or night, depending on when you're listening or watching this episode. And if you've been continuing to rock with me and listen to me, I appreciate you. Make sure you like, subscribe, share with others. And also, if this is your first time listening, I just want to say I appreciate you taking time out of your day, noon or night, to listen because you could be doing anything, but instead you are listening, to me. So I really, really appreciate that. So without further ado, let's really get started, shall we? All right, so this is the month of Christmas. It's the Christmas season, and I've been really feeling really tug of my heart to do this, but not just this episode, but like a whole series talking about this one thing that I'm about to mention right now. Because usually during holiday season, especially like Christmas, Easter, things of that nature, we have two different, I feel like, extremes when it comes to the holiday. You have the one extreme where it's like you gotta have the best decorations, you gotta have spend all this money buying presents, you gotta do all this extravagant stuff like that. And if you don't do all that, if you ain't buying presents, if you ain't doing anything like that, then it's your holiday season is done with pretty much. Like there's a superficial materialistic part of this holiday that can bring problems and strife and things like that. So, not to be super negative, but there's one aspect where it's like Christmas is all about that per se. And then you got the other half of people in the spectrum that is like they stay away from Christmas because of it's rooted in paganism, or you're really when you operate or celebrate Christmas, you're really worshiping something or doing something that they used to do so many years ago, or like this is actually all made up, So I really wanted to make a whole series talking about this, and I think it's important because people really do get influenced by what's being said on social media, what memes are being posted, what's being shared. Because I think when it comes to this time of year, it affects everybody differently, positively, negatively. Like I feel like it affects us in a certain way when it comes to this holiday. Um, because really with this whole series, I don't want to just talk about and really just like, oh, just to prove that Christmas is in pagan or anything like that. But it's really to talk about also how we can during the holiday season actually do things more properly and stuff like that. Because yes, I'm going to be talking about certain myths that lines up with so-called Christmas, but it's not really Christmas. Because I think that does affect people a lot. And I also want to talk about it from another standpoint, which is how do we not get caught up in like consumerism when it comes to like this holiday as well? Because even though obviously you can realize that you're not really worshiping something, but there's a lot of consumerism and materialistic things that can overwhelm us with why we should be celebrating this holiday or anything like that. So I really want to talk about really all these things for like this whole entire month because I really think it's important, and I do think it's another tactic of the enemy to, especially with the whole paganism thing, to take away from historically with the whole September 25th thing about the celebration of Jesus' birthday and stuff like that, and him being born and things of that nature, in which we're going to get into a lot of where the date came from throughout the series. Why did they come up with that date and things like that? And it's not going to have anything to do connected with paganism. We're going to dig into all that, trust me, like throughout this whole entire series. But I really wanted to just use this episode as like an intro to just have everybody have an open heart and open mind when it comes to this topic. Because, like I said, I really think this holiday affects people um, a lot, whether it's positively or negatively. Or it could be this time of year where someone passed away and now you're depressed. Or it could be that you were caught up in the consumerism part of Christmas, the commercialized part of Christmas, and you could have had bad stuff happen from there, or good stuff that happened from there, right? I mean, everybody has a different Christmas experiences, especially when you get older. And I think since our country we're so caught up in Christmas, is obviously probably the biggest holiday, I would say, in our country. I think it's important that we do learn about Christmas, learn not only about it, but also participate the right way if you want to participate or anything like that, right? Because it's not even about how you participate, right? Because you don't have to at the end of the day, right? But um, I do want you to have an open and honest opinion before you make an opinion, if you want to or not want to or anything like that. Because sometimes we can easily be persuaded by something that's not even true or something that like we can easily be persuaded. So with this one, I just wanted with this episode, I just want us to use this episode as a way to open our mind and our hearts up because for some people, they are on a point where they're like, you know what, every holiday ever is like it's wrong, it's pagan, it's connected with something, it's this or that, and we don't need to be doing anything, right? And some of us could build up to that, right? And we would need to be sincere to that because there are elements where holidays can be wrong for sure. Like tons of elements of it. Like I can list them out how a holiday can be used for a wrong thing and things like that. Like absolutely, for sure. There's a lot of things for Christmas that can be misused and misguided, and we can do stuff wrong. Every holiday you can name that, right? So we can't be naive to there's things that do go wrong in holidays. Not the holiday itself, but how you do or participate in a holiday can be wrong. So we have to really acknowledge that. I feel like as well. And to be honest, the reason why, because at one point in time, like I grew up obviously in church, still in church now, but I grew up in church, and then I got to a point even like probably like 7 years ago where I was like, I was kind of over Christmas a little bit. Really, because it was really because of the consumerism part of it, the money part of it, how people are so caught up in presents and all this other different stuff. I see how people are like are responding to that. And I see how it affects people because of everybody so caught up in presents. And if you don't have this many presents, then your Christmas sucks. Or if you don't got family to hang out with, then it sucks, stuff like that. So, when people started to share memes and all types of other stuff, talking about how like Christmas can be pagan and da da da, and then also the fact that obviously December 25th isn't Jesus' birthday, so it was like I kind of dipped into that a little bit, like I think Christmas probably is a little pagan and stuff like that. Like I'm not, I never was on the thing like if anybody celebrated it, that you're doing whatever pagan celebration, but I was like I think it kind of is they dipping into it and stuff like that until one time I actually got challenged on that thought. Like really challenged on that thought. And it was actually like a older big homie that I used to be really, really cool with. I mean, we're actually still cool, but he moved and stuff like that. So we kind of talk, but not as much. But he really challenged me, and he was just like, "Hey, so you saying it's pagan?" And he was just asking me questions like, "How is it? What is it connected to? What practices were they doing? How is it? How does it line up? How does it match? Like, what is And I pulled up a couple memes, but then he really taught me like you need to do more than that. Even back then, like way back then, like he was saying like, but what sources is coming from? What agent? Like what direct sources is coming from? Who was writing that? Like who was saying it? Where are they getting their information from? So once he asked me those questions, I had to sit back and realize like, you know what? Instead of arguing, instead of being combative, instead of just not answering this question and saying what I think, blah blah blah. I was like, you know what? Let me actually take on head on what he actually said. Let me actually like research. Let me actually try to look up like sources to how stuff happened, like the original, like the actual sources it came from, like as far as back as or earliest that we can find it. So he challenged me and I accepted it. Instead of like like share my own opinion or not believing them and stuff of that matter, like let me challenge myself. Let me actually look this stuff up like legitimately, not just Wikipedia, or not just listen to some video somebody else necessarily talk about anything like that. Like let me actually like really take some time to do this. You know what I'm saying? Because it was intriguing. So I was like, let me actually do some research. Let me actually start looking at stuff. So I'm actually glad he challenged me in that way. It really helped me to understand the importance of actually learning how to research properly, how to look at sources properly, how to look at, what I mean? Like, and I think that's what our biggest problem is. I feel like in this country is the fact that we don't know how to fact check properly. We don't even know what a source actually look like. We don't even know what a direct source is, or what do we see as reliable? You know what I mean? Or those type of things. And I think that's our problem is that we don't know how to research stuff like properly, like actually research stuff and actually know what to look for, how to look for it. Like, and I actually did an episode like a while ago talking about how to properly research stuff because I think we're in an era where we just like this rant about something, and since something has a hint of truth in it, it sounds compelling, then people just go with it, right? Because everything that sounds compelling has hints of truth in it. Like it does. Like even with the whole Christmas pagan thing. Like the hint of truth with the main people that claim this as well is the fact that Jesus' birthday isn't December 25th. That's the truth right there. It's not. So it gets you intrigued and it starts to seem more believable. Like, you know what? Maybe this stuff is, da 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 da. Maybe this is reliable, right? But I think as good faith, we really need to learn and really check and really leave our biases aside. And real quickly, I just want to share this one Bible verse real quick, just to really like set the tone of where I'm coming from real quick. And it's in Proverbs 18:15. The writer says, "An intelligent heart acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge." So someone genuinely, an intelligent heart acquires knowledge. That's something that we want to acquire, right? Because I think a lot of people are on this path where it's like, oh, we want to know truth, we want to seek truth, right? We want to learn about the truth because we're like the wave now is we need to unlearn everything that we ever learned in our lives, or they never taught us everything, or we've been learning so many bad things, so we want to unlearn all the bad things, and now we want to really seek what's actually true so we can unlearn all the bad things we've been taught in life. Like that's the wave right now. That's been the wave for a while now. It's like, okay, I've learned all this stuff in my life. Not all of it's true, a lot of it's cat. Okay, I really want to find out. I really want to see what this is, right? Um, and that's the path I'm on right now. And then also it says, "In the ear of the wise seeks knowledge." So it's not even just about us trying to acquire the knowledge, but it's also us listening to someone who is knowledgeable about something, someone who actually knows what they're talking about. I ain't talking about, no shade. I ain't talking about someone who's just ranting or someone who's using blanket statements or just claims and stuff like that. I'm talking about people who are actually know what they're talking about. And I'm not even talking about this subject. I'm talking about everything, right? I'm not even talking about just in this particular department. I'm talking about in everything, right? We need to be doing that. People who are actually knowledgeable, actually know what they talk about, maybe quote sources, something like that. Actually look at who we're listening to. And I think that's important because we'll listen to anybody. And I'm not saying no one can make a good point or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is when it's something that is tickling our fancy or something that we're kind of leaning towards, we'll listen to anybody and just co-sign it without really digging into it. Or without really looking at it for ourselves, because oh yeah, that's exactly where I'm at right now. Yeah, I agree with everything they say. When really they could be saying nothing but cat to you, but you just going with it because that's something that's tickling your fancy at the moment. I don't know why I keep saying that, but I think that's a cool term to say. But yeah, it's tickling your fancy. But that's how we can be. Honestly, that's how we can be. And what I've had to learn, me being in graduate school and stuff like that, with my goal to be a biblical scholar, is that when you look at research and stuff like that, you have to do it honestly. You got to look at the sources honestly. You got to honestly put a bias aside and just see what the evidence and what the proof actually says. Right? Not going into it with a bias, but having a clear mind with it and going into it and reading what it actually says, what the information is actually out there. So not only are we supposed to acquire knowledge and have the heart to acquire the knowledge, which is good, which we all should do, right? Read stuff ourselves, look at stuff ourselves instead of just always listening to people and co-signing what they say, but also having the ear of the wise person to seek knowledge, having that ear to listen, right? Listen to who is probably knowledgeable. Listen to someone who can challenge you on certain things, and not listening to what they're saying, but actually read what they pull up. actually like listen to what the challenges that they said, because challenging the stuff that we think and believe actually helps us grow. And because of the certain areas I've been challenged in my life, it helped me grow a lot. And even to the point where I'm at today by me being challenged to look this stuff up or to prove this, right? That's how we actually grow. So I think it's important that we just don't always just listen, but when we're in the quest to seek knowledge, also listen. And I think also the important thing is too, is that it takes time too. Like actually learn, like even though we have Google and some things you can look up quickly in a second, there's other historical stuff that is going to take more than just a Google search. I hate to say it. Google doesn't always answer every history problem or every deep, like if you want an actual deep understanding of things, it takes more than Google. It takes you Googling books. It takes you Googling people who are experts on that specific subject or time and things like that, and written articles that they've wrote about it, or books that they've written about it, and the sources they're getting it from. Like it takes time to actually read and gain a lot of that knowledge and to understand. But we're also in a society where we want everything fast, we want everything quickly, we want these quick Google searches, which this is good. Don't get me wrong, this is like a library almost in your library right here on your phone. But to be knowledgeable and actually in it, it takes time. You need to actually read it, go over it, look at multiple different sources. Like it takes a lot of time to do that. And the thing is, people don't want to take the time to do that. They just want to look at a couple videos, look at a couple memes, and act like they're experts, and then tell people, "Oh, you're wrong. This is this, that, and the third." But when in reality, we're not really knowledgeable either. We don't really care about the knowledge either. We just want to go with whatever we think or whatever the mode that we're kind of in, and not really challenge ourselves, right? And I even had the conversation recently on the different posts, which is good conversations to have. And the thing is, when I got challenged in this particular thing, right, it's always that, oh, you're just adopting what you just learned, right? Which to a certain degree, that was kind of the path for me about even the Christmas celebration and stuff like that, because in Christianity, obviously for Christmas, the main reason why we celebrate Christmas is because the birth of Christ, right? Which obviously no one knows the day he was actually born, but that was the day that we did, Christians used to celebrate Christ. So before I even knew where they even got the December 25th date and all that stuff from, just because the church has been doing it, that's where we got it before I even understand where we got the stuff. Which I think as the church, I think we need to do a better job of at least at least explaining where we got this stuff from, because you'll have people say, and just be like, and since it's not his actual birthday and things like that, then we don't need to we don't need to do this, that, and the third, right? Like they make it a way bigger deal than what it actually is, a lot. But I think it's important to understand why, because some people be thinking like Constantine is the reason why. Like there's literally people think Constantine is the reason why uh you know Christians celebrate Jesus' birthday on the 25th. They really think it's because of Constantine. Like Constantine's blamed for everything, which is crazy. He's always to blame for everything. Even though before Christianity was way before him, and he wasn't even really a believer really either. There's a huge debate on that. But my point is that I was lately now when I challenge people on this, it's always like, oh, you're just indoctrinated and stuff like that, right? But the thing is, the reason why for that I was challenged because of that same thing. Like, oh, I was thinking I was indoctrinated. Like, oh, like they just told me this. So now I'm going against the grain and just say, this has to be pagan because there's certain maybe overlap somewhere or whatever. So this got to be pagan. But once I was actually challenged on that and actually had to look at it, I actually had to look at it from my unbiased lens and actually look at what the information actually told me. So when I see that now, it's like, no, I'm not indoctrinated. I actually looked up the information. I actually read multiple sources. I actually, giving you sources like, actually, this is where this comes from. Here, look at this. Look at this time period. Look, they've been talking about Jesus' birthday even before this Roman holiday. Like, look, they've been talking about. Actually, this is how they got the calculation, which it was in writings even before the Roman holiday, certain Roman holidays. You know what I mean? And some people will choose to ignore the information, right? And I think the real reason is we can be puffed up about this stuff sometimes. And like I said, we all do it. Me included, I've done it before. All the time. Being puffed up about certain information and not really reading to care about learning what actually is true and what's actually not true. Because to me, it's never been about, really to wrap this up too. But to me, it's never really been about um it's about convincing people you need to celebrate this or you should celebrate, because you don't. At the end of the day, you don't. You don't need to celebrate Christmas at all. Period. And I'm not even acting like a Jehovah's Witness because I'm not at all. But I'm just saying you don't have to celebrate Christmas. You don't have to really celebrate any holiday. You don't have to at all. Like, you know what I mean? You don't have to celebrate Christmas or the birth of Christ. You don't have to at all. It's not no command of Christ. We know that. But on the token, don't let, because of certain people misleading you with certain things that are not true, be the reason why you don't celebrate the birth of Christ either. That's my thing. It's cool if people don't want to celebrate it, but don't give people false information and tell people they're doing something which they're not actually doing to tell them to stop pretty much doing it. That's why I think it's wrong, right? That's why I think that's wrong. Now, you can have your own opinions no matter what you see, that, you know what, regardless, I just don't want to do it because I just don't. All right, and that's fine. But don't think, oh, I'm spreading truth. I'm spreading truth out here. I'm going to tell people you need to stop abortion when that's not what you're doing. You're not spreading truth. You know what I mean? You're not actually caring about people. Like, caring about people, showing love to people. Oh, you don't need to celebrate this because it's harmful. No, like, a lot of that comes from pride, honestly, a lot of the time. Because at the end of the day, certain people celebrating these holidays is not really doing nothing to nobody. It's not doing nothing to them. It's really not. And you telling them that they're worshiping something because they're doing this, I think it's definitely wrong. It's definitely wrong. Like, if people want to do it, let them do it. And I'm not saying people out here just like, oh, you need to you need to do this, that. I'm not saying that, but I don't want people to not celebrate something just because they've been misled with wrong information. That's really what this is all about. Because even though something can sound even compelling or convincing and have some hint of truth there, that doesn't mean it's true. Honestly, that doesn't mean it's true. It don't mean it's true. So, throughout the next couple weeks, we're gonna go through all of it. We're gonna go through the arguments. We're gonna go through the different pagan things that they brought up about so-called Christmas, and we're actually gonna talk about why the early church picked December 25th for Jesus' birthday. We're going to talk about a lot of this stuff. We're going to talk about where the Christmas trees. We're going to even talk about certain Bible verses that people use to try to connect that with Christmas. Like, we're going to talk about all of that because I just want us to be knowledgeable of where all the stuff comes from. And then on top of that, I also want you to know that even if let's say for instance something is connected somehow with some pagan thing, just because you happen to do it doesn't mean you're worshiping whatever the thing actually is, because I'm going to show you multiple examples of what that would look like if that was actually true. But I'm just really asking, like, for y'all who are going to continue to listen, the next about this, just have an open heart and open mind of what I'm sharing. Because at the end of the day, I'm not trying to convince people to follow what I'm doing. Like, I'm not trying to, convince you or change your mind or make you celebrate something you don't care about, because that's not my decision. That's up to you. Like, that's not what I care about. But I want to show you some stuff to change your opinion, so that way when you're telling and talking to people about it, you can't be out here misleading, saying, "Oh, this is what you're actually doing when you participate," when that's not the truth. And and like I said, if you don't want to, that's fine. But don't say, Christmas is this, or you're worshiping this, or oh crap, what's the other thing that's usually said? Oh, like, or God says, where the God says you got to celebrate this at. Where God says that's a man-made rule. You know what I'm saying? Like, Don't even follow no man-made, like, don't follow no man-made holidays. God only said, but when you look through scripture, there's no command of not following no man-made holiday. And not to mention, that's a man-made rule. Like I heard, who was it, Tolkien, I think, who said that? Saying that God says for us not to celebrate man-made holiday. That's not in scripture at all. And on top of that, that's a man-made rule that man came up with. So based on that own premise, you're violating what you're saying or what you're claiming just by using that man-made rule. I thought that was pretty good when I heard him say that, but it's true. And we're really going to get through that. But I just want us to have an open mind, open heart, and really being open-minded about what it actually says. You know what I mean? Because for some people, no matter how true this is, no matter how much it goes against their point, they can't sit and actually admit it. And even then, still, even after this, you still won't be able to admit it. But I at least want to plant the seeds so that way you can actually see, like, okay, this ain't really what I thought it was. And even if I don't care to really celebrate it because all the consumerism and stuff like that, I'm saying, look, I have no problem, that, ain't nothing wrong with it. But I just don't want misleading information putting out there and saying all this different stuff, right? So that's pretty much going to be the intro to this, and that's really what I wanted to talk about. But now the next episode, or the next couple weeks, up until like the last Monday, like we're gonna really dig more into this. Like we're gonna talk about where December 25th actually came from. We're gonna talk about, did it come from this Roman holiday, Sol Leviticus? Did it come from Saturnalia? And then we're going to talk about what those two Roman holidays actually were and what actually happened, if that has any connection. We're going to talk about where the Christmas trees come from, where the Santa come from. We're going to talk about certain verses of the Bible that seem like it's talking about Christmas trees, but it's not. Like, we're going to talk about all this stuff the next couple weeks. So really stay tuned to this series. It's going to be a good one. So stay tuned. Stick with your boy. But this is it for week 1. Stay blessed. God bless you. Peace.